I'm new to this. It's been a minute.
I'm buying you some way. I'm buying
Shush. I love you.
buying you a tripod or something. I'm buying you a little stand for your
I
phone.
have a three-legged cat. I don't need another one.
Wait, do you really?
Yeah,
What's this cat's name?
Freya, but it should have been Tripod or Eileen.
Why Eileen?
3 legs.
Can't stand up
Eileen.
straight. I've never heard that before.
You are listening to the Alpha BassCast with Jake Boomer, Bryant Smith, and Beau Fletcher.
Not knowing when you're going to start this, I will do the unofficial start, even though I'm pretty sure that this will be like 4 minutes into the recording. But podcast is back. The BassCast is back. Between since we
ABC.
left last ABC, all of us have worn tires out except for Beau, and that's one of the reasons we had our little kind of
Hiatus.
hiatus siesta.
Do you know that
Beau,
word?
you don't have to talk about what happened to you, but
we had a little incident. It was a Sunday morning, getting up early, 5 a.m. to go hit the Columbia River. And the chest felt weird. Let's just put it that way.
Your chest?
I did my chest.
As I say, if it was somebody else's chest, I think you could get in trouble.
That would have been awkward.
Yeah,
But I did what every smart person would do. I woke my wife up and I said, "Put your head on my chest and tell me if it sounds weird." But it did. So off to the old emergency room we went. At first, they thought that something more serious was happening. So I think I had about damn near every machine in the ER room in a little room with me. But once they figured out I wasn't in any sort of cardiac issue, they looked a little more into it. And I was going through something called AFib, arterial fibrillation. And if we really want to get scientific, you've got a valve up here that pumps blood into your heart, and then you got one that pumps it out. And they do kind of this rhythmic thing. And my top one was like way out of sync with the bottom. So they had to figure out how to put it back together, get it back going again. And apparently the only way the best possible way to reset your heart is to hit it with 800 volts of electricity. So
Clear.
Yep.
Does that make your beard hair fall off?
I don't know what it made. They put me on some drug. I was in a spirit realm. I was somewhere else and I was very happy. And when I came back, I was not happy. And I wanted to go back to that place. But yes, my wife did say the doctor yelled clear before my entire body lifted off of a hospital bed and slammed back down in a matter of a second.
Do they put this is an honest question, but do they put a diaper on you before they shock the everything out of you?
I asked. I mean, because I figured...
I'm sure that I would need a diaper. Well,
I just figured it was coming, literally. And to make matters worse, my wife did actually make the joke that if I was going to go, and she would be okay with me sharing this story, if I was going to go, I was in the right place because I had these two very young, attractive nurses tending to me the whole time. And she could tell that apparently I was flirting with them in my in my spirit world.
Flirt with them a little bit too much, and your wife's not going to let them shock you back to life.
She definitely was shaking her head at me on the way home. She was like, "You are just out of control." But
honey, I was on peyote. What do you want?
Yeah. So the moral of the story is you did not get a clean bill of health for the Mohave Super 60.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out what was going on. It was crazy. They did a bunch of tests. They came back and they're like, "Your heart's super strong, but we don't know what's causing this." Turns out I had an infection left over from when I had the flu, and they think that's what caused it. It took them a while to figure that out, and they were a little worried about me being in a desert and on a body of water far enough away from a place where I might need help. And
with zero cell phone service.
Yeah, that too. That too. I mean, Bryant, you offered to, tie a rope to my boat and just tow me around for 2 days, which from the looks of things, it would have been good for me. Yeah. I mean, at least, I could have coattailed my way into into a decent weekend. But
You know, I know that I was encouraging you. I was like, just go, dude. You'll be fine. We'll take care of you. And then you hear about what happened to the kayak guy. And so I kind of regret my advice of, oh, suck it up. You'll be fine. We'll just put an EPIRB on you. And if you fall in, it'll beep and we'll come pick you up,
I mean, I'm not going to lie. The truck was packed. The boat was ready. No, like I had everything together. I was ready to go. And when my wife and I sat down with my doctor and had the conversation, I could see the look all over her face. Was like, yeah, no. You're not doing that. You're not doing this. So I figured I'd take the right path, but we're cleared for takeoff. So
that's cool.
It's time to go.
Well, and if stress was any kind of a catalyst to potentially hurting your heart when you found out the way they were forcing the tournament league to cut our days to 4-hour days for wind that never happened, you'd have probably had another episode. I know that we were having episodes. Never fished a 4-hour day.
Yeah, let's change subjects. Let's talk about Mohave.
Well, we're glad you're healthy though.
Yeah, thank you. I am too.
I'm glad you're healthy. I think now you need to get back to editing podcasts is what we're trying. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we got to get back to the real work. The things that matter.
Well, the Northwest Swing is coming, and I know that you have circled some weeks in the calendars, and everybody's pretty stoked about all the big events coming up north. So you're healthy for the Northwest Swing, the Columbia River. I mean, for crying out loud, Potholes.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be fired up for that.
I am. It's going to be
good.
Oh,
yeah. It's just the best place in the world. And you know what? We kind of have a real circuit on the West Coast now. Like Bass and MLF, in the spring, they're south when it's warmer. And then they go north where it's, you know what I mean? They kind of follow that temperature deal. That's kind of cool. I mean, in California, when does California have its rule, 6-hour tournament window rule? Does that start soon?
June 15th.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah, so it's cool that we can go north because before we just didn't have tournaments in the summers. We just had them.
Yeah, you just
early and late.
Didn't have tournaments in the summer, even though they're really fun. 6-hour tournaments are kind of fun, just because you get half the day to just hang out. You're done by noon. You can go hang out, have a few beers, barbecue, do whatever you want.
Do they do many?
No, not really. No, pro-ams don't do them. I remember one time, it was during COVID, FLW, I think it was FLW still. Had to have been if I was fishing it. FLW had to reschedule a Delta one, and they did a 6-hour tournament on the Delta in August. It was super fun. Launch it, like literally blast off at 5:30, done by noon, and you just hang out the rest of the day. It's a pretty relaxing pro-am. You're not beat by the end of the day. You got a whole half a day. Jake, you would be in bed by 4:00 in the afternoon. Like, you would love it.
Damn Skippy.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So at Mohave, we only had a 4-hour day, and that's not enough time for me. Like, I was one fish away from cashing a check after middle of pack finished the first day, and I just needed another 20 minutes to an hour. And I remember thinking, like, if I'm paying entry fees, I want the whole day. But it is better than getting canceled. And I know Mark had to fight with, I guess Mohave
that
is
one's
regulated.
Out of his hands.
Is out of his hands. He did a good job to make sure we got on the water. But full days, baby.
Yeah,
or as much as you can.
That's the national parks. It's the same thing with Mead. All those tournaments, if there's a two red flag warning, they cancel your permit. So the fact that we even got to fish, like, there was a legitimate chance that it was a one-day tournament.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would be happy with that. So them getting us 4 hours, that was pretty big.
So I'm gonna just jump right in the deep end here. Like we had some conversations about the circumstances that went over this weekend. I think both of us spoke individually about it. And it's interesting with how the scoring format works with BAM and how it kind of makes for an interesting platform when it comes to having days canceled. Like if you just had one, like if we all showed up to an event and let's say on Thursday we get notice that Saturday and Sunday gets canceled, does the scoreable and weight format still work? Like, is at that
The way
point
it's written in the rules.
100%? But I'm talking outside of the rules, like theoretically, like, do you feel like there's an advantage or a disadvantage to having it go that way?
I just don't think you have any other choice.
Yeah, and I don't think that scenario will happen. I hope that scenario won't happen very often.
Well, if we go back to
You know,
Mojave,
like
it
we
might.
talked about in the, well, yeah, that's true. That is true. But
That's actually a real reason to not take a Super 60 to a place like that, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
well, I mean, or any
don't take it
tournament.
to
I mean, I remember,
don't take it to somebody who can take it away from you.
right? Like they pulled us. It said we had to be off the water at 11 because the wind was going to blow really hard, and it didn't blow till 4. You know what I mean? But
Did it
that
blow on
being
the
said,
Did it blow on Sunday?
The best part about it was there's still all these pontoons and just
everybody
ski boats going out as we're coming in.
kayakers.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like good luck,
Oh,
guys.
geez,
It's
that's
really,
tough.
yeah,
that
it's
makes it
just
tough
it's
because
funny.
you're trying to build a product that people are paying for. And when I talked to Mark about it, I said, I know that cancellation's an issue, but if all of us are down here, how's your third day? Because we knew that Saturday was at risk. I said, but everybody's going to get 2 days. He goes, yes, you guys are going to get 2 days no matter what. They'll cancel the top 10 day. And that's where your question's coming from, Beau. How do you do that? Because our top 10 day, we just take, highest weight, highest keeper count, second highest weight, second highest keeper count. And so, but the way he would have to break that down is the last day or the third day, he was just going to separate it. You have to keep that platform. So if you're creaming them and you got the most keepers, your highest place you can get is second. High weight will always win the tournament, which is a priority they set with when they first designed this format. So,
Sure.
but we asked him.
I think there was a lot of guys that actually went into that tournament trying to focus on weight just because of the unknowns of whether the days are going to get canceled or what. Like, if they're going to get canceled, do you really want to go fish for keepers? Because then you're fishing for second if a day gets canceled. You have no shot at winning. So I think a lot of guys went trying to find that weight deal.
I think that's funny though. Like, I don't know how many guys had experience on Mojave, probably more than you think, but I don't know how you'd even pick. Like, you've got to get the first bite to, you know what I mean? Like, I never
Oh, if
chose
you're
one
not
or the
from
other. I was
there,
just trying to find yeah.
yeah. If you haven't been there, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. Right. Well, unfortunately in the spring with no practice. For me, the hardest part for me is when I've never seen it is when you have too many problems to solve. Like, what phase are they in versus, you know what I mean? What phase are they in? What area are they in? And you can get a clue, and I'm not fast enough at writing off one clue. You know what I mean? You get a clue and you're like, okay, I'll follow this clue. And you could go down a tangent, and by halfway through the day, I mean, my example was the first fish I caught within the first 20 minutes of the day was a fish on a bed. It ate a topwater, but it was pissing all over. I knew it was on a bed. That took me down the bedding tangent, but I was doing that in the wrong area. When you get through the spawn and what we're doing, your choices are a little bit more limited, right? They're probably a summer pattern. You're starting to eliminate parts of the lake. If you've got current, you know what I mean? You're gonna start fishing probably current seams and eddies and points and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But that was weird for me. Like, that thought process was probably harder for me than what if I was going to go after keepers or wait, you know what I mean? Not knowing how far along they would be. And we have a 30-day off limits rule. So that made that a kind of a tougher, you can't, all you could really do is look at weights from other tournaments. There wasn't a lot of information to kind of see how they had progressed, but You didn't
And
have
I
to
was
make any of
shocked
those
that
decisions, did you, Bryant? Why not?
no, I did not, because I ran straight to the waypoints that I won the U.S. Open on, and they were still sitting there, happy and
Ladies and
willing,
gentlemen.
happy to see me. Oh, Brian's back!
Uh-huh.
Boom.
It
Hey,
took me
buddy.
20 minutes. My first bite was a 4-pounder, literally on one of those same waypoints I fished in the U.S. Open. I was like, huh?
And there's always gonna be that without a practice, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
arguably with a practice, it would have made you more deadly. Yeah,
yeah. I had to
of
start
course.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I was actually tempted to not start there just because I wanted a fresher mind, but I just ran straight there. My boat knows how to get there.
And that's Bryant Smith luck right there.
Yeah. Oh, I just showed up. And when he told me to, he's like,
It'll
"Yeah, first
work
spot I
out.
went, yeah, they were there. You know what? They were there. It's like they never left." And I just kind of rolled my eyes. I passed him. I said, "How's it going?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's the day after the U.S. Open. They're still in the same areas and blah 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 blah." And I just put it back in gear and left. Yeah. Actually, Bryant was awesome. He's like, "You can try this, but this isn't for everybody." And which I think is pretty cool because I think Bryant doesn't like giving any information to even his closest friends. But I couldn't make it work and had to go find my own. I still needed to find my own pattern. But Bryant, why don't you break down for anybody that's watching this what you think the fish were doing in your second place finish? Second, right?
Third,
Third. Yeah.
third. Yeah, there were some still on beds, and there was definitely more post spawn fish, but there was enough fish up near beds, near bedding areas that you could just go around. And I would just looking on my forward facing sonar, and they with active target, when they're on a bed, I think that's one of the advantages of the Lowrance active target is I can see the separation on the bottom a lot better. So I can actually see that fish sitting on the bottom on a bed. And I was just pitching a tumbleweed around the new Strike King dice bait on a drop shot. And that was the
The
first
bait that
day.
none of us can get. Thanks.
I think I have
Big
some
timer.
somewhere around here.
Big timer.
Actually,
Oh, sweet.
there's probably one right down there. Yeah. But yeah, just a dice bait. Everybody has them. Everybody's made them in their garages at home. But I did that, and those fish are the post spawn fish were the ones I really wanted to find, and those ones relate to grass edges there. So I did a lot of that too, where that rock or sand to grass transition was a big deal. It's always a big deal in the desert. You know, there's not a lot of structure once you get like you look at the bank and you're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be rocks everywhere, and there's really not once you get into the water. So a lot of it is just that sand to rock transition or sand to grass transition, and that was another big key that I really focused on, and just yeah, I mean I'd be lying if I said I didn't just run a lot of history stuff and they just happen to be there, but it's smallmouth stuff, flat points, flats, drains, anywhere where there's something different along a stretch of all that's the same. That's just those high percentage areas. So I just ran a lot of that stuff, and that's the cool part about smallmouth too is you just got to get it around them. Like they do, you guys know, smallmouth, they do a lot of work for you. Just get your bait around them. Get in an area where there's a population of fish, and they're not super hard to catch. And that was the coolest part about this tournament too, with no practice. Like I'm used to fishing the U.S. Open there, where they've been beat on for 5, 6, 7 days before, and you really got to kind of work for them. Dude, I threw at that first fish and it caught it halfway down, like in 20 feet of water. It saw it splash and it was already halfway to the surface trying to eat that thing. So that was really cool being able to fish for fish that really haven't been fished for. But yeah, just run around like a chicken with my head cut off, covered a lot of water, stayed on that active target, and threw that dice at him. Tumbleweed, excuse me.
That was not the greatest rundown, but thanks.
It was fine.
That was all right. I mean, like,
Subpar at best, but that's okay.
that was like, yeah, it was like a Bass.
Oh,
Master
wait.
magazine
I
article
caught them on an
saying the
Alpha
grass
Angler
transitions.
DSR with a loose custom light, 12-pound braid. I have the setup right there.
Blah,
What is it? 12-pound braid, 8-pound fluorocarbon leader.
Hey.
Did I say Alpha Angler DSR? It was an Alpha Angler DSR.
Okay.
It's a good drop shot rod. That better?
Thanks.
It's not bad.
You've only won like $250,000 on it in the last 12 months. So yeah, it's a sweet rod. Yeah, thanks.
Not bad.
On the same
Nice to know when you hook one on it.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, maybe I should put those on like that. What is that? Fish tips? I should put those on fish tips. Maybe maybe I can make a couple bucks off of them.
It's a great rod.
Like the OnlyFans for fishermen. I kind of think it is.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Here's a couple things I noticed. Having that being my first, I only got to I've spent 12 hours tournament wise on Mojave. The crazy part was the fish were probably 20 feet shallower, maybe 15 feet shallower before the sun hit the water. And I'm not talking about like at home where it's direct sun going through the water. Like a lot of times the sun can hit the water at an angle and it still doesn't have the same effect. But if the sun hit the minute it hit the water, those fish were half as aggressive to come to the surface and eat. Yeah, it was the very first fish I threw at. I watched him come all the way up and get a little swim bait. I couldn't even believe it. The minute the sun hit the water, it's not, a lot of times at home, you have that angle. Once it gets to like that 45 degrees and it really starts to penetrate the water's so clear there. The minute it touches it, that bite completely changes. Mm-hmm. The other thing I could not believe, you agree with that, Bryant?
100%. 100%.
The other thing I could, yeah. Well, if they let you out and you know where you're going and you can find shade for a little bit longer, I was able to prolong the second day bite, that earlier one, by having some shade. I know it's pretty flat in most of the places. The other thing I noticed about that place was I was almost mortified by the clarity, and I've fished Colorado River places before, but I've never looked down in 25 feet of water. And yeah. And so that kind of changed things, but I got a really good story. So those are the two things I noticed. The other thing that screwed me was that I think that you were surprised at how far along those fish were, how many fish were all ready to postpone summer, right?
I was actually surprised at how many were still on bed.
Well, it depended on where you were at. The lower half obviously went first. The upper half didn't.
100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, put that in the bank. I think Ish told me that he cached a check bed fishing, but he ran way up, and he did it on the short day, which is impressive because he had a lot of ground to make up in the keeper count and he only didn't have very long to run. So he did his damage in like 3 hours, which that's just what a pro will do to you. But
jeez. Yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to him on the way to the ramp. I passed him and called him, and we were just jawboning. He's like, yeah, we both got a lot of work to do. And I jumped 16 places, and I think he jumped 20. Like, I don't remember. It was pretty good. He got the last check, but he did it on keeper count with a long run. Catching bedding fish was pretty impressive. I had another really good thing I was going to say, and I forgot. Something that I wrote down when I got back from there, because if I ever get to go back, things you don't want to forget about Mojave, but now I forgot. I was surprised how far into the summer they were. Like if I would have started summer and worked my way back into the spawn, I would have probably found more stuff, summer stuff. I fished cages. And I don't know if a lot of people know that there's a lot of cages in there, but there's a lot of brush too. And the largemouth were in 30 some feet of water on brush. I just couldn't catch enough of them to make a difference. And the other problem I had was they kept running back into the brush and breaking me off. Like I actually pulled a big one out of a brush pile that ran into a cage on its way back to the boat and broke me off. It's like, no, but what they do, that was pretty early in the year for them to be that far into that offshore structure like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool tournament. We dealt with the
It's a cool place.
circumstances. Cool place. Yep.
So is there time of year where the wind doesn't blow? Like it potentially does, like, you know, like the Columbia River. Like we have, you know, you get into that late fall, there's less wind. We have a lot of wind in the spring. Summer depends on heat fluctuations up and down the river, but like, does that body of water have like a high wind time and a low wind time, or is it just fairly consistent
I
being out in
mean,
the desert?
historically, the summer is the worst. You know, you even going back to when the U.S. Open was on Mead in August, like there was more windy days than there was calm days. But October, when they have the U.S. Open there now, it's very rare you see a windy day. Um, you know, I'll pre-fish for 3 or 4 days and then 3 days of the tournament, and it'll be windy maybe 1.5 of those days. So I think the early fall, which is strange because as it's starting to cool off, but it doesn't seem as windy. But I do think this time of year it does get windy. I remember fishing when the Wild West went there. I think their second year. It was a pro-am, and it was in February, and it was windy every single day. And that place gets big. It gets really big.
They call it Beau Raymond, right?
Yeah, yeah. You talk to some of the desert guys down there, and they say it's worse than Havasu and Mead by far when it blows.
I wonder if it gets river big.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets
I
big.
could see it getting pretty nautical. It's a Northwest lake. It's got a neck down. It's going to build up where it necks down, right? So if you're in the main bowl going north or south, it's going to build up before it gets wide. But something I wanted to talk about before we move into what you need to know about the potholes in Northwest Swing, which is the next segment of our amazing comeback tour. So it did. There was last week a kayaker that passed on, and I'm not going to speculate any of that kind of stuff, but I do want to talk about my buddy Mark. I have only heard rumors. I haven't called him, but no matter what caused that poor kayaker to pass on, the situation, none of that stuff, we're not going to know for a long time. I don't even want to talk about what you should or shouldn't do. Everybody always has an opinion when something happens, but there's also a debris field that happens when stuff like this happens. And after hearing the story that Mark and Michael ran out and found this guy, and Beau, you can tell the story, but what I heard was, just tell the story, Beau. And the point of the story, or how they did that. The debris field is, I'm pretty sure Mark is going through some, and Bray are going through some stuff. So say your prayers for those guys, because I know that and the story I have leading up to this, I've never told it, but since it's a podcast and you got to bury your soul, just kidding. But before you tell the story, Beau, the reason I know this is I was fishing Winnebago. Bryant and I were traveling together in the MPFL, and I actually found a gentleman that passed on in the water. He fell out of his chair and drowned. And it was the long and short of it was I called the cops. They met me on the side of the highway, all that stuff. But Bryant said I was a wreck. Like I was bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that was problems, I got teenage girls, and it was he was a smaller statured guy. He was face down and he had a ponytail. So I thought it was a young girl that drowned, and I didn't know what was going on. So obviously that stuff hits home. But I think I barely cashed a check, but Bryant had to check on me quite a bit. Like that was the nicest Bryant has ever been to me for like 3 days. Just, I get it. It's that's kind of stuff that just starts to shake a little bit of foundation. But after hearing Mark having to do this and then having to do, you know the story, Beau, I don't, but
yeah, I mean,
you could tell what you know.
I mean, the whole thing is just, I had a really heavy day when I spoke to Mark on Saturday, just hearing his story. I mean, we all do this because we love it. It's something that we all pour our hearts and souls into. And, I was mostly shocked to hear, I mean, we all run these big power boats and sometimes not the smartest ways. But to hear it happen in this kind of event, it was really shocking to me. But shortly after blast off, Mark and Michael got a phone call that there was a boat unmanned that somebody had found, and they ran down to find the boat and find this guy. And yeah, I mean, I was blown away at the two of these men because they went to work, right? They got him into the boat. Michael called the paramedics. They found a place where they were going to meet him at a boat ramp. And then meanwhile, Mark had a lot of CPR training. And so he tried to resuscitate the man. And although they were unsuccessful, I mean, they did absolutely everything they could have and really just came together in the moment. And as much as I hear about what they did and almost how, like, what a selfless and heroic act that they did, I know it really was a really difficult thing for both of them. But I know in their hearts, and I know in my heart that they did everything they could have. They both were pretty shooken up by it. Mark, we always joke around. I mean, how often do we joke on this podcast about Mark? At one point, man, I don't know. I talked to him a couple hours later in the day, and he just, he made a little light of it. He was like, "Man, does this mean, am I getting all the bad stuff out of the way now?" I can't even imagine. And I've got to tell the other half of the story. It's equally as tragic, and it's just unbelievable. But on Friday night, another angler was there with his father. His father travels with him to these events, and his father had a medical event and passed away. And so,
Holy cow.
Michael and Mark got a phone call at like 10 o'clock at night on Friday and to help this guy out. So Mark literally saw the same coroner within like 7 hours for two different people. You can't make it up. It's heartbreaking. It's a really weird thing. I actually spoke to Mark Pilgrim a little bit, and he lives at Almanor, and he thinks that Almanor is cursed. I don't know if you knew this. When we did our pro tour last year, apparently there was an earthquake in the middle of the event. Did you know that?
It was a Pro-Am. No, it was an Apex Pro Tour.
Well, apparently there was another one
there was
during our
another
pro
one.
tour.
Oh.
Yeah.
There was one
And
in each
Mark said,
one.
like,
yeah.
Yeah, Mark said over the last 4 major events that's been up there, something has happened that's not good. So I don't know. We got to get, like, we got to cleanse Almanor somehow.
No. Poor Almanor. Yeah, I mean, obviously what Mark is going through isn't greater than the families for the people that aren't. You know what I mean? But,
God no, it's terrible for everyone.
Yeah, it sucks all the way around. But that PTSD that Mark's probably going to go through and Bray too. Anyways, and here's my warning. Here comes the rant. If you're one of those guys that gets on Facebook after something horrible happens and put in like the temperatures at which hypothermia, blah, 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 one of those posts that everybody knows about, that's worse than swim bait Johnny. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows, everybody's scared.
That
The last
doesn't
thing
help
anybody
the
needs is a
situation
lecture
at
on
all.
how to. Yeah, exactly. Like, we'll have to come up for another name for the guy that uses the wrong time to tell somebody how they could have, that's dumb. Anyways. Okay, that's the end of that. Mark, we love you. To the families of obviously 2
Thoughts and
crappy events. Yeah. So let's talk about something better. We love fishermen. We love fishing. So let's talk about fishing now. But yeah, that's just I figured that had to be brought up. We're a podcast. All I know is that I'll tell you that obviously something bad had happened, but I didn't want anybody to know that I was the guy that found the body, and it turned out to be I guess he was kind of a homeless guy. He was part of a homeless community, and the pastor for that area that came in to pray for our tournament and talk to us actually said, he's like, yeah, we lost one of our people last night. So that made it hit closer to home. But I just remember like being somewhat relieved that it wasn't a kid, you know what I mean? Which is kind of miserable to think that you would think that way, but it hits so close to home. But not that I was relieved. It was just it had so many congruent thought processes. And then I realized how much stuff that when you see something like that gets stuck in your head and you start to relate it to your everyday life. So I know that Mark is probably, and Bray too, are probably like, anyways, say your prayers for him.
Well, and I mean, it's always a good check-in. I mean, I ended up not having anything horribly life-threatening happening to me, but I had a moment where I thought, there was a moment where I sat in a hospital thinking, man, am I coming out of this place? And, you know, I thinking about what they were going through and what that person went through and his family, like we do what we love, but man, there's always, you never know when it's going to happen. But more importantly, like there's always there's a little bit of risk involved in what we do. And I think it's just good to always keep that in mind, like when we're out there, to look out for each other, because, you know, that having each other and having that community and us looking out for each other, that's a big part of this whole thing going around, you know? But,
yeah. I mean, the moral of the story is life is short. So throw a topwater way over any kind of finesse thing. It's way more fun.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Glide
if
bait.
today was your last day, would you throw a drop shot or a topwater? Freaking topwater.
Glide bait.
All right. So on an awesome note, the Northwest Swing is happening. We're all talking about it.
And you'll
I
notice
have already started.
how nice the weather is up there, because I'm in a t-shirt sweating in my garage, and they're both in sweatshirts in 50
I'm
degrees.
not just in any
and I just
sweatshirt.
got out of the sweatshirt, the Bucket Bass Fremont.
What
You're
is
probably
this?
sweating under that thing.
What is this thing even called? But I forgot the name of it.
Fremont.
But this, dude.
Fremont, right?
So it's 50 degrees. It was 47 degrees when I was outside earlier doing my chores.
I honestly don't know how you're wearing that
sponsor.
indoors.
Well, I was.
Are
really
you that
cold.
dad that
now
like,
I'm
comes
starting
in
to
the
get
house
kind of
and
hot.
cranks the heat down to like 63?
Yeah. Got
Tell
like
the
a lock and
girls,
key on the thermostat.
Put the socks on, girls. This is going to be a cold one tonight. You are that dad.
I am. Well,
I'm
when
just
I
so
built,
jealous, because I just left the Sabine River, which was 90 degrees every day. It didn't warm up very much. It only warmed up 9 degrees every day. But when it starts at 81 at 4 o'clock in the morning with 110% humidity and goes to 90 with 120% humidity, and then when I get home and it's 90 degrees and I see these jerks in sweatshirts, it really rubs me the wrong way.
well, I got hit in the forehead with a piece of hail on Sunday on the tournament I was in, and I had to stop the boat and check and see if I was bleeding. So, I mean,
That's a good story.
I'm like, oh, it's raining.
Hold on.
Wait, it's raining, and I literally saw the thing come. I think it even bounced on the carpet first, right before, right here, thunk. And I had to stop the boat, and I had to repent for the words.
Did I ever tell you guys about the time I got hit in the head?
Well,
with a
I had
duck?
my hood on and everything, so I. That's awesome. Like Bill Lowen in that classic that year hit a duck. You could kill yourself hitting a duck. You know what I mean?
No, dude, I was a passenger. I was in the boat with Daryl Burkhart, and we were on Moses Lake, and it was my first time on Moses Lake, and I'm looking around, just taking it all in, enjoying myself. And all of a sudden I hear a thump, and that duck hits the console in front of me. And then and I'm looking this way, and it felt like Mike Tyson hit me in the face. And
that reminds me of an awesome story.
I was like, the duck flew right off. It just hit me. I look over, the duck's flying away. I'm seeing stars. I look over, and Burkhart's just looks at me and starts laughing. And he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Fine." He's like, "That was hilarious." And I'm like, "That is not funny." He just got knocked out by a mallard.
To go with that.
But he's the boat driver. It's his fault. Was, and you're gonna have to forgive me. He was the legendary guide on the Delta for so long, and he passed away a few years ago. I can't remember his name.
Thomas?
No, the guide. Was it Cooch?
Cooch. Andy Cuccia.
Yes. Cuccia. And a friend of mine went down there every year to fish with him because he loved the guy. but the guy was he goes, he was never messing around. And my buddy told me the story where they're going across Frank's tract and there's this huge raft of coots and he would not drive around them. He just
No, you
mowed
drive
right
right through.
through them. He
Yeah.
was mowing right through them, and they're like hitting the clients, and the clients are throwing them out as fast as they're coming in, and he just keeps on driving wide open. Dong, dong, dong. He goes, we're grabbing them by the wings and chucking them out. And I'm like, what, did that affect the guide tip or what? Like, I would have been pretty upset. They're crapping
got
all over you.
2 coot stories from Frank's track. So a buddy of mine was fishing with another buddy of his, and they're driving across Frank's track, and he's in the passenger seat. And this coot comes barreling across, and he relieves himself as he's going across the front deck. And then he barely goes by my buddy's face. And he looks over at the driver, and the driver's like, "Are you okay?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he smiles, and he had coot crap all in his teeth.
Oh.
The other one
Uh,
was the other one was a buddy of mine was fishing a tournament out there, and he was in it was like a 04 Ranger where they still had the graphs mounted on the side, so there was a little gap in between the console and the graph. And first thing in the morning, all the coots are sitting in the middle of Frank's track, so he blasts off and he runs through a raft of them. And one coot breaks his neck and gets stuck in between the console and the graph. He left it there all day until he pulled the boat out of the water like a trophy.
that's morbid.
That is so.
Oh,
Yeah.
stupid coots.
Coot. The problem
Coots.
is, even if you drive to the left or to the right of those raft of coots, they will fly in front of your boat
Yeah, they're not the
every
brightest
single
birds.
time.
You
They are
can
not
slow
highest
down, though. I
migrating
know-
birds in the world, though.
Yeah, highest flying. But I don't know how to tell people this, but if you actually slow down, you won't hit them. I know bass fishermen don't agree with
I don't
that.
An insane
Pedal to the
concept.
floor. Yeah. But if you slow down, they generally are flying away from you. Now, not all of them.
Mhm.
Anyways. I don't want to
Dude,
be
no,
the voice of
no,
reason
no.
today.
They're like,
No.
they're playing chicken with your boat. I swear. They're like, hey, I'm gonna go.
'Cause
Okay, I'm gonna wait
it's
2 seconds and
72
then
miles
go.
an hour.
And then I'm gonna wait 2 seconds and go. The first one goes, barely
Maybe
gets by. The
this
second one, like you,
massive, loud
Dude,
missile
they're-
is coming at them at Mach 70, and they're just like, crap, and they don't know which way to go.
no, they're adrenaline
then-
junkies.
They're not
Dude.
intelligent.
They're adrenaline junkies.
I love that Brian.
They try to see how close in front of
giving
your
them
boat they
so
can get.
much credit.
Oh, yeah.
They're adrenaline junkies.
The great
I
coot
swear.
hunter. The great coot. So there's not
All right,
going to
man.
be any
Potholes.
coots at potholes. Yeah, changing the subject. There won't be.
No.
I don't think there'll be that many coots at potholes. They'll be all down in the delta. But
Leave.
I've had like 5 or 6 phone calls, just people asking about potholes. So the next pro-am, which is the next pro-am is the delta. Isn't it this weekend?
Next run.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next week.
So that's this weekend or next weekend.
Next week.
Doesn't matter. The delta is coming
Something
up.
like that.
Then the Northwest Swing up. Yeah.
So we got
By the time we get
coming
this-
up.
Podcast out, it might be after the delta, but the delta happens. Mm-hmm. And so anglers that did the first 3 southern events will then they'll know where they're at in the point standing to qualify for the Super 60, and they'll be given a chance through the travelers to go north. So I'm pretty excited because that'll be the northern swing. They'll get potholes in the Columbia River, which will finish up the pro-ams, and we'll know who makes the Super 60 for next year, and then we'll have the Super 60 in Columbia River. So cool summer. The
I've
potholes
heard a
information
handful of
that I will
California
give you.
guys that are going to come up for
I
California.
know, and they always do good.
California guys, go to Potholes. Just do it.
Yeah.
It is the coolest place you will ever fish in your life. It is so much cooler than anything we have in California. Just do yourself a favor. Go on vacation. Bring your family. And go fish that. I'm going to do it. Like, tournament on Potholes, I'm in. and it fits into my schedule, I'm in.
It's gonna be fun. And you were there
That's-
with me in June, right?
Mm-hmm. It's wide
All
open.
right. So, just kind of the generalities of potholes that will help guys when they start doing their map study. It's a irrigation, so the water pumps out the bottom and then comes
First
in
of
the
all,
top.
well,
Uh-oh.
hold on. First of
Uh-oh.
all, map study. If you've never seen that place on the map, look at it once, walk away for 10 minutes, and then come back.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
scratch your head.
Uh-huh. It's flooded sand dunes.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Our,
wild.
yeah, and you're driving around in it, and somebody told me when I first started fishing there, like, if you can see water, go. They make maps now that are good enough that you could. That's not true. Like, if you could see water, go, sure, until you run across one of those old road beds that's like 2 inches deep, and it's an ATV road bed, and when the water falls down, and that hurts, and you can get stuck. So don't really follow that. But the mapping, especially Lake Master, is really good on that lake. Like, really good. You can run around with that. It's an irrigation, so it's really, really full in the spring, and then it all summer long falls, and the fish are used to it. By the time we get there, there'll probably be some spawning left over, and they'll be kind of doing post-spawn summer stuff. But they kind of follow the water down, so those are pretty good ideas. It's completely full of willow brush, but by the time everybody else gets there, there will be what we call cable grass. Bryant saw the cable grass.
Snag hitter.
What's it like? Yeah, what's it?
Cable.
Is it like primrose?
No, that is the strongest grass I've ever seen. I've never seen a
cable
grass
grass
where
is?
you can't. Yeah, a submerging
You can't idle
primrose
through
is.
it.
Yeah, primrose is pretty strong. Like you're not breaking a primrose thing, but primrose is only on the surface. That stuff goes all the way. It grows from the bottom up. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine having a woven nest of primrose subsurface and trying to pull a bass out of it.
Yeah.
Good luck.
If you think you're gonna find them in that, you got to bring some artillery. It's so bad that a friend of mine got it wrapped up in his prop, kind of like fishing line, and it ruined his outer seal and ruined his lower unit. Like, it's how stiff it is. Yeah. So dude, it literally stopped my motor. Like, tried to idle through a little bit and it rounded up and just killed the 250. Give it gas and it just dies. So it's stout stuff. So if you're gonna fish it, bring the big stuff. If you think that's what you might be doing, but there's a little bit of everything going on. Top water's good. Guys love to throw frogs there. The reason I think Californians and people that have never seen it do well there is because when you don't have any history and you're just kind of going with the flow, I think that place gets so much people fish it a lot. There's a lot of fish in it, but you get caught up in thinking they're doing this one thing, so you go looking for that one thing, and it's just sometimes it's a little bit better to go blind. I think get a couple of days of practice in. Go down to Mike's place for burgers that evening. It's a pretty fun place to be. So there's free camping. Any of you guys that don't want to pay for camping, there's Blythe parking lot, which is run by the local Fish and Wildlife, and you're allowed to park your camp for free. Most guys will launch out of there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
You
just a
can
short
catch
hop over
smallmouth.
to Mardon, isn't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. You can catch smallmouth. There's smallmouth in there. I've never seen them play, but we've also never had a tournament this big there. And I think that could change things too. So, I mean, we've had big tournaments. They just had 166 boats for their big bass last weekend.
They did.
Big bass. Mm-hmm. That's
The water.
What
I think
won
their
that?
biggest turnout. Huh?
Well, it's a
What won that?
it's a
A big
power
bass.
hour. The
Yeah, what was
biggest
the
they
biggest
caught
bass?
was like
It was
just
a big
over
one.
6. But that's not how they win it. Like you get a key every hour that you win, and whoever's key starts the boat gets the boat.
Yeah, so there's 10 guys.
So
10 hours.
the boat's a lottery, but then you get cash for each hour for winning.
Big turnout.
But yes, just over 6 won it. Most of the fish were in the high 3, low 4 range, and then there was a big jump to a 6. So
A
I guess
lot
the
of
water was
quality
way up.
fish in there, though.
Yeah, there's not as much like. I'm an advocate of this, and I could start a bunch of fights, but I think that in the summer months that tournament organizations should have a 1 pound dead fish penalty. I know that Bryant and I have been part of that the first time it happened. And Bryant may not agree, but I'll tell you what, the MPFL had a 1 pound dead fish penalty, and people threw a fit every time they heard about it. But by the time the first year was over, I feel like it actually had an effect on what a tournament angler will do with a fish. If he thinks it's going to die,
Nope.
it's going to cost him a pound, it
Dumb.
goes out.
That's
Bryant
dumb.
doesn't like it. You made some good
That's
decisions and got rid of 3-pounders because you know what? He had a
That's
better
dumb.
chance living, and he was going to cost you too much.
Dumb.
Where I think
if I hook a fish where that hook goes into his gill, just by happenstance, the worm turned upside down in his mouth, and I rip his gill, I get a 1 pound penalty.
You don't have to. You can
That's
throw him back
dumb.
in. He has a better chance of surviving.
Yeah, and it's a 4-pounder. Yeah. Well, it's not. No.
Well, no, it's a 3-pounder if you kill it. Here's the point. Actually,
The point is, it's dumb.
Okay. Well, what it does in the summer is it forces guys to not just carry a bag of ice and tell me that their recirc pumps are the best in the world, instead of actually doing the homework and realizing that, I can't remember the exact number, but 60-degree water holds something like 30% more oxygen than 80-degree water, or 40% more oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get to 80-degree water, no matter what it is, and you have large fish in there, there's a Texas study, they actually can't live in that water for very long. Even if they don't die when they get to the scales, there's a long-term effect to them, and they have what I think it was like a 60% potential of dying within the next week or something like that. Yeah. But by keeping the water
delayed mortality.
Delayed mortality.
Yep.
But by keeping the water cooler, which tournament anglers will do, if you tell them there's a chance it's a 1 pound penalty, they'll actually go out and buy more than 3 bags of ice. I mean, remember we bought the biggest
out there
coolers
trying to kill my bass?
What?
I'm not trying to go kill my bass. I try to keep them alive.
Yeah,
That's
I bet you were a lot better at it. So in the summer, if they implemented, I think in the summer, if they implemented a policy like that, guys would probably kill less of the big ones, especially when the water gets hot.
Yeah.
I carry 7 bags of ice with me on those Potholes tournaments. Yeah, but the river's always cooler. Potholes is a lake, right?
Yeah, but man, when it gets up into the late August, it's gonna be in the hundreds.
Yeah, I agree.
I've seen some big derbies, local derbies come out, and it's been not the prettiest.
Well,
take care of your fish, people. It's not hard.
Learn how to. Not just, and don't listen to that. I don't care who you are. Don't tell me that you have the best live wells in the world. Your live wells, unless you have an oxygen tank, can't increase water's ability to hold oxygen. 80-degree water can physically not hold more oxygen than 60-degree water. It's a physics.
Correct.
So I got the best live well. No, you don't. You know what I mean? So if that 1 pound dead fish penalty, people would actually carry ice. And Bryant and I went and bought coolers because we had to do Pickwick in July.
Where'd you put
this? Is an awesome story.
Just threw them in the cockpit.
Bryant, yeah, and because Bryant, Bryant bought the hard-sided one, and I bought the soft-sided, the Yeti hopper, and Bryant had the other one. And Bryant and I are fishing next to each other on the last day. I've told this story before, and Bryant probably should have thrown this one fish away, but didn't, and then it passed on, and so he threw what we call a tissy fit, like an 8-year-old, and went from the back of the boat to the front, and he stepped on his hard cooler. And then the hard cooler
was now and then he empty. It was solid in the morning because it was full of ice. But when I used all the ice, it got really light. And
he stepped on the cooler. It went out from under him, and
what
he
you
went into
get
the console
is
of the boat.
A scar like that. And I got another matching scar right here now. Don't ask about that.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Like he hit so hard. No. Let's tell the first story so the second story has some value. The first story goes, he goes, I think there's skin on the dash. Like he hit so hard it tore the skin off.
No, it was fat. There was literally fat.
It was fat. It was fat.
Legit.
Oh.
And I'm like, are you okay? Yeah. And he goes, I'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm fine.
But Brian has a blood clotting issue where like you got to kind of worry about him having extra bleeding. So then we get back to camp after that day, and Bryant got a top 10.
No, wait. You have to quote me correctly. Are you
I
okay?
can't.
Yeah, I am. And I look down. Oh, no, I'm not.
But then he takes one of his stupid yellow towels that he uses to clean his screens and ties it around his knee and goes back to casting. I'm like, you'll be I'm fine. And he's like, oh, there's fat on the console. Anyways,
It's gross.
it's pretty bad, right?
So gross.
Plus, Bryant has to be careful about not bleeding out. So that night we get back, and Brian is trying to fix this gash in his knee with like DuckTales Band-Aids that he had left over. Like he's cross-hatching Band-Aids over this. And
Mickey
my
Mouse
wife
Band-Aid.
comes around the camper to tell him that dinner's ready, and she looks at him and says, "Oh my God, you guys are idiots." Or I can't remember what. She was cursing both of us because she knew she was going to miss dinner, and she drove him straight to the ER. How many stitches did you have, Brian?
I have one row of 16 and then another row of 16 on top of that, totaling 32. It was so deep that they had to do 2 rows of it as a
Ducktail
little
Band-Aid.
guy. Yeah.
He's trying to fix it with butterfly ducktail Band-Aids.
Oh,
Yeah.
how are
They
you
were Mickey Mouse
standing on
Band-Aids.
it?
They didn't hurt. Similar
I
to the
think all
one
the
I got
blade-
now. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
The
did you
blood
hear
rushed
about the
out
one
of
he
his
got now?
brain, and he was
Boomer?
just.
Did he
I
tell you
heard
how he
about
did
it.
it the second
David
time?
Gastitel.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I'm tightening the bolts on my trolley motor because the Sabine was rough for one, and I got my hand stuck. So I step on the step in front of the winch on the skeeter, and I guess I didn't get enough toe on it, so my foot slipped off, and my shin slid down the edge of the step, the metal edge of the step, and I've never seen so much blood come out of me so quickly. And Beau is squeamish, so I'm going to go into extreme detail here. I look down, I'm like, that's not good. So I limp into the bathroom in the house, and I stay with David Gaspin, and I was like, hey, I might need some help. I grab a towel, put some pressure on it, and then Matty Wong was staying at the house next to us, so he called Matty over because he had a um, first aid kit. So he brings over a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and a first aid kit, and I lift the towel, and I'm like, oh, that's my shin bone. That's cool.
Ugh.
And Maddie's like,
Train
dude,
wreck.
put your foot in the tub. And he grabs the bottle of hydrogen peroxide. He gives it a little squirt. I'm like, all right, it's clean. And Maddie literally holds my arms back like this. And dude, he douses it to where the flap of skin was like going up and down, and the hydrogen peroxide was hitting my bone. It was awesome. But yeah, I fished all day. No big deal. I ended up going to the ER after the tournament just because it wouldn't really stop bleeding. It was just leaking all over the
If
place.
I was standing next to you when that happened,
You would
if
have been
I was
on the
standing
ground.
I would have dropped like a sack of potatoes. It wouldn't have been good. Oh,
It's really
We
really a bad combo having my blood disorder and being as clumsy as I am.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good.
The
But
good
yeah.
news is, and we should have asked David Gaston to be on tonight's show. We didn't even think about it, but that dude's funny. But when I talked to you guys the other day, the first 3 things he was complaining about was the fact that you bled on the couch, bled on the bed, and he probably wasn't getting his deposit back from the Airbnb.
The dumbass
You're gonna
didn't
walk
even
in there
go
and
to
be
the
like,
ER
bleeding all
to
over
get
the place.
stitches.
I thought
Oh,
these
man,
were
that dude is
fishermen.
funny.
What is this crime scene?
Oh, dude, that guy's
Yeah,
funny.
I had to go
It's
to
just-
Walmart and buy new sheets for the place. I hope they don't notice.
Gaston's awesome. Does anybody else have anything to add about potholes in the Northwest Swing before we get off tangent again? or my wife says that it's time for my old balls to go to bed.
Californians, show up. You will love it. It is like the perfect combination of Clear Lake and the Delta. You will have
That's a
so
pretty
much.
good
What
assumption.
let's make some like what do we? How many pros are going to show up? We're going to have 50 boats. We're going to have 60.
Well, it's everybody's favorite lake in Washington, so I'm pretty sure. Not to mention there was 40 guys from the Northwest that did the Shasta event. So guys that are in the points race, and there's, I mean, a lot of those 40 guys did pretty good. You're gonna have all them. You're gonna have all the Super 60 guys, I'm sure, that are in the area that want to go. I think it'll be a good turnout. I think it'll be an even better event. It's a fun place to have an event. It's a competitive place to be. So
Mardon's a good place.
there's a lot of information on it that you can, do your homework. There's a lot of good information on the way it fishes and the things they eat. And
If you, my biggest tip is if you see a Alpha Angler wrapped Phoenix Suzuki, just drive by it really close and hit waypoint.
I don't know. The event you and I did, we didn't do very well. So
We were
I've
close.
got a love-hate relationship with that place right now. We call it buzzing the tower.
Buzzing the tower.
Just buzz the tower.
Just buzz.
Yeah, I actually haven't done really good in June there in a while. And some of it's because of the delayed spawns. They've been having later spawns because of the way they manage the water. And so I think that it'll kind of be wide open for everybody to do a little bit of everything. Maybe it'll be towards the tail end of the spawn, but falling. The one thing
Fun
people
event.
don't like, falling. Anywhere else, falling water is not a great thing, but it is a constant there, and so it's not a bad thing. Those fish live in that cycle, so don't be afraid of the fact that the water's slowly falling. If it gets really hot, they'll really pull the water out of that place, but it creates a current in the lake, which is a good thing. So fun place, super cool place. Well, we'll have to put some pictures up. Beau, I'll send them. Maybe we can add them when we final edit of the way that place looks when it's low. It's insane cool. From
It's
our
great.
Mars.
Yeah, it is Mars.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And then
what's after
following
that?
we got the river in July. Ironically, darn near the same time we did the Pro Tour last year.
Keep going.
So,
I'll be right back.
Yes.
So
you and I did the Pro Tour.
Probably going to be some sort of smolt bite going on that time of year.
That's the tail. I'm told that's the tail end of the smolt run, which keeps those fish really high in the water column. And I think they go straight out of post spawn. I think they come out of the spawn. A lot of people they'll be in their post spawn spots, but because of the smolt, there is no post spawn spot. No, it is straight out to dinner. You know what I mean? Like the smolt come through. So, and there's some shad in there.
So they go straight into the current.
Yeah, there is they stopped on the secondary just outside of the current. There's a very large group of them that just go straight to the current. The caveat to that tournament and what a lot of guys don't know is it got won. I think the top 4 places came out of the upper pool. And in the Pro-Am. In the Pro-Am we fished, which was in June.
June.
Yeah. So the upper pool is also a player here. And because we'll probably have a lot of boats in that tournament, guys that practice and will have time to practice may want to look at locking up. Because the fish in the upper pool always win. 99% of the time, they win. But if you have a top 10, they only occupy 1 or 2 places. That makes sense. So if you have a lot, like before, we used to have large tournaments out of the Tri-Cities. If 100 boats went out, the top 10 would be 7 guys out of the Boardman pool and 3 guys out of the upper pool. But the 3 guys out of the upper pool had first, second, and third in weight. There's less fish up there, but they tend to be bigger. And there's big largemouth that I think get a little bit more catchable. And that's the hard part about that place is deciding if you're going to make that run. I know when Chris Parks went, we had a wind delay concern on the last day, and he went anyway and beat us all. So there's a lot of really big fish in the upper pool. The run is about 25 minutes to the dam and then another 20 minutes afterwards. So you're cutting about an hour and 10 minutes, hour 20 minutes out of your day with lock time. So
Do they have a
consider.
lock schedule?
They do. And generally when we have an event, they clear a time up and down.
That's nice.
So it is nice. I've only ever heard of 1 or 2 times where where they don't honor the lock schedule and a boat comes, but it's very rare that a barge will push them out. Most guys make it back up and back. So the upper pool is less current oriented. It is current oriented, but there's more flats, quite a bit more flats up there that are not. You get some of those fish that aren't going to go straight to the current, and some of the bigger ones will be kind of in that post spawn, like just outside of the current. But the lower pool, I think they go smolt chasing. So,
Do you think?
Are you coming up for that one, Brian?
In the summer more?
I believe so.
I think I don't know.
As
I feel
in
like the
winning capability.
Yeah, I think when I feel like when you start to get into that summer months, like those deeper summer months, I feel like it balances a little more.
It does. The thing you can't beat is the upper pool has more 5-pound smallmouth and the chance at 5 and 6 pound largemouth. Like the guy that finds a 6-pound largemouth or a 5-pound largemouth, that's a big difference maker. 3.5s are really prevalent in both pools, but it seems like there's always that pound difference that you get in the upper pool. And I don't know if it's healthier smallmouth, if it's, when I've done good in the upper pool, when you're kind of competing against both pools, I generally have a largemouth or 2. And they're huge.
There's that Wild West you top 10 at Boomer. It was in the summer, wasn't it? Justin Campbell ended up winning it. I think remember Ron Mace brought in like a 26-pound bag of smallmouth or something. Yeah. That was in the summer, wasn't it?
It was.
I think like it was in
June.
July.
Yeah. And those 2 didn't just win it. They all of the rest of us were in a different tournament.
Everybody. Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, like 28 pounds of smallmouth, and thanks for coming. Yeah. Yeah. Massive smallmouth. They had 2 28-pound bags or something like that. I think Ron came from 14th on day 1 to win it or something like that. Like big
Campbell
fish.
Ended up winning it on day 3, but
yeah, that's right.
I think it was day 2 that Ron brought in that just ridiculous bag of fish. It was 20. Yeah, it was like 27, 28 pounds or something.
Yeah, and that was
Are you
all
coming
small.
up for that, Bryant?
I'm planning on it. Yes. I'm only getting 1 northern smallmouth tournament, so I want more.
You got to beat on them a little bit.
Yeah. And of course, scheduling conflict, I have to miss the Super 60 up there. So I want to catch Sammy a few more times.
Sammy needs to catch, yeah. The first time Brian ever came up was for a Wild West, and you could just stay with us, stay with me. Well, we, for the longest time, just stayed in the camper because they had power at the parking lot there, and I think it was 4th of July.
Watch the fireworks show.
Well, we didn't know that parking lot was actually a legal place for people to come from town and launch fireworks. So we just kind of sat in 2 chairs and watched because you're not going to sleep. And families literally blowing up minivans. The one lady was Brad's like, that is what a pyro looks like. This woman was going back and forth, just pulling stuff out. And somebody tried to blow something up down at the launch ramp, and the whole launch ramp lit up, and there was 6 kids running up the hill. Bryant's like, is there going to be burn danger or something? It was chaos. I do remember that. That was the time that you told me that you drove straight from Sacramento to the Tri-Cities with never stopping. You never got out of the truck and stopped the truck. Remember that?
Yeah, I never had to. My truck had when I filled it up in the Tri-Cities, I was driving very slow. I had nowhere to be. So I got there and I filled up my truck, and it had an 840-mile range with how I'd been driving. I was getting 25 miles to the gallon.
He never stopped. He never stopped.
I want to know how many
literally
Gatorade
sat in his
bottles
truck
you
for
filled.
11 hours. I know, it's so gross.
How many Gatorade
There's
bottles
no
did
way you
fill?
didn't fill up a Gatorade bottle. You
At
heathen.
least
100%. Just one. I don't drink very much. Nah. I don't even know if I did that. I
Is
never
that what it is from
drink a lot of.
Sacramento to Tri-Cities? It's not that many, is it?
No, it's like
11 or
9
12?
hours.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's an easy drive, too. Super flat. Oregon will pump your gas for you. It's great.
Not anymore. They don't do that anymore.
Oh,
You gotta
really?
find- No, it's not a
Yeah.
law anymore. There's a
gone.
bunch of little huts and all the gas stations. They're empty now. There's nobody in them. Sometimes they'll come
Dang
out.
it. I remember the first time I think it was that. No, it might have been for the. It might have been for the first pro-am I fished up there. I go into the first gas station. I'm like, why is this guy approaching me? He's like, oh, I'm going to pump your gas. I'm like, no, you're not. And I totally offended him. I totally spaced that Oregon had that law that you weren't allowed to pump your gas. So I ended up pumping my gas, and this dude was so mad. And I just went
You're
along.
you're used to California. If somebody's approaching you at a gas station, it's on.
Yeah,
That's a
you're
problem.
reaching for your piece.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You're either gonna get propositioned for drugs, other things, or it's a battle.
Yeah.
No, it's an actual. It was actually a law for a while. Like it was against the law to pump your own fuel.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. No. Well, I broke the law then. I probably
You
got a
did.
warrant out for my arrest in Oregon.
I think that using the bathroom while you're driving is a law that you broke too. Just saying.
I didn't do it while I was driving.
You know what? I think that we need to end this podcast.
You did it while
here.
the guy. You did
I
it
think
while the
we've
guy was
gotten
pumping
to
your
the
gas.
point. Yeah, I think we've gone roundabout. We've covered almost
You're like, yeah,
every
fill her
potential
up.
topic.
I'm gonna empty it.
All right. Well, if you guys are good and we've covered almost everything that you can talk about, let's call it. Let's end it here before it goes any further south.
What a great
That's
way to
probably
end
the
it.
best. That's probably the best.
All right. I'm glad everybody's back. In the
Yeah.
future,
We're back.
if you're listening to this podcast, Dr. J. McNamara is scheduled to come back and give you some more PhD learning, which I'm super stoked for. So listen to
That was
this
a good
one
one.
and cue the next one. Yeah, right on.
All right, boys.
Thanks, fellas.
See you at the next one, boys.
Good to see you guys. See you soon.
See you guys. It's good to be back. See you.
Thanks for listening to the Alpha BassCast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and rate us. We'll see you next time.